So thanks again. I was just thinking that I've been doing webinars and live broadcasts probably since, 2015, 2016. And I've never had one fail like that. So this was the first time. I think I've been very, very, very fortunate because I've heard a lot of stories of that stuff happening all the time. So I'm grateful for that. But I apologize for wasting your time and things not working. So hopefully you can hang out, for, I was planning to do this for about an hour. Hopefully you can hang out for half an hour, however long you've set aside for this training. And hopefully you'll get something out of it too. We're going to be talking about Excel formulas and all kinds of different functions and formulas for solving this guessing game challenge. A lot of fun. And we had so many submissions. I was excited and just overwhelmed in a good way with all the submissions we had. It was really cool to see. And we'll be going through some of those as well. And so you should be seeing my agenda here. Also make it bigger so we can see that. There we go. Make it a little bigger so you can see it. Let me jump back over to the comments. Okay, great. I'm going to just kind of set this up. And then also, if you're on live with us, go ahead and just type in the chat where you're coming from, what city, state, or country you're joining us from. Say hi in the chat so I know you're here. I can see your names and everything like that. And like I said, we'll get started in just a minute here. Okay, I think that's all good. Let's see. Cool. Okay. Good. Okay. Great. Yeah. All right. Okay. I see him going. Perfect. Let me get some. There we go. Okay. Chat. Okay. There we go. Awesome. Why Love from Austin. Good to see you. Karan from India. Welcome. B from Colorado, India, Mexico, Alan from Mexico. Awesome. Okay. Looks like we're all working here. I'm not going to read everyone's names because I don't want to waste your time with that, but it looks like good to go. And from Spain, Hero Tools up plugin. Yeah, or add in email support at excelcampus.com with any questions on that. Be happy to help there as well. Okay, good. Looks like we're all here, all in. So awesome. Let's get started. Okay. So today we're going to be talking about the solution to the challenge that I presented a few weeks ago for the baby shower guessing game. This is a fun challenge, and I will explain the challenge if you're not familiar with it yet. And this will be a great opportunity to learn some new Excel formulas and functions, or maybe ones you already know, but using them in a different way. In terms of who the training is for, I'm going to try and gear it to the intermediate user. So intermediate, maybe to some advanced stuff we'll look at towards the end. But I'm going to try and gear it towards the intermediate user. We'll be looking at like the if function, absolute, and a lot of different functions. So if you're a complete beginner with Excel, some stuff, might be over your head. And what I've done in the description of this video is I put some links to some of our YouTube videos on things like the if formula, using text splitting techniques and things like that we'll be looking at today. So if you're not familiar, I'll try to do my best to explain, but if you're not familiar with a certain thing, there'll be some resources in the description as well. I just wanted to kind of set that ahead. You can also download the Excel file that you see on my screen here. You can download that. There's a link there should be a link in the description as well for that. So that will, of course, help you follow along, and you can use this as a practice and a guide and a resource as well. All right, so I quickly am just going to explain the challenge. And essentially, the story here was my wife went to a baby shower for her sister, and she was telling about this game they played at the baby shower, and she said that they logged it all on a spreadsheet. They're not an Excel geek like me, or my wife is not an Excel geek like me, but she was telling me about it, and she said, we need a way to score this because we don't know how to really pick the winner. So I came up with some points, and I thought this would be great. Or I came up with the rules and a kind of a point system, and I thought it'd be a great thing to share with our audience in different ways to solve this problem and figure out who the winner is. And essentially, it's a guessing game. So all these people here were attendees of the shower, and they are guessing the date of birth, the time, the weight, and the length of the baby. And then I put actuals up here. Of course, the actuals haven't actually happened yet, but we just made up some actuals here, and then we have to determine who the winner is based on these rules. So there's a point system here, and I'll explain more about the point system as we get into it. But essentially, that's the point system there and all the rules. And so we had over 100 people submit files with solutions, different solutions, which was really cool to see. A ton of different strategies, which I'm going to talk about today. I'm first just going to go through kind of the basic solution, probably the most common one, the one that I came up with, and I tweaked it a little bit based on some things I saw and learned from the audience as well, and I'll talk about that. And then we'll also share some of your solutions, the audience's solutions and submissions as well, some cool ones that stood out, definitely some advanced stuff, some lambdas, let function, and some very advanced things, and some cool conditional formatting and all kinds of stuff. So we'll look at that as well. And the other thing, the other thing I wanted to quickly mention here was the approach to the solution. This was actually a description of Robert's solution. Robert is a member of our Elevate Excel trading program. He's very active in our community forum, and he uploaded his solution and also wrote this description, which I thought was a good kind of description of how to approach and solve this problem. So I wanted to share this. This is Robert's description, but I wanted to share this as kind of a way that we're going to look at how to solve the case here, solve the problem. He said he broke it up into 2 calculation sections with helper columns to determine the guess variation from the actual, and then calculate the points based on the variation, and then add the points to get the final score and use rank to place the scores. And of course, you can read the rest of that, but really that first paragraph there is overall what we need to do to solve this. So if you took on this challenge, leave a comment, post a comment, and let us know how it was for you. Was it easy? Was it difficult? Did you give it your best shot? Did you have fun with this? Leave a comment and let us know in the chat as well. I'd love to hear some of your feedback and what you thought about this. Of course, we got a lot of great feedback from the submissions. It looked like people really enjoyed it, but curious to hear your thoughts as well. Okay, so let's jump into the solution. And here on this sheet, I have the overall solution, but what I'm going to do is break it down into pieces. So this will be easier to learn piece by piece or component by component. But here, if you did take the challenge, you're just curious if you got things right, the winner was Anne Marie, and you can see that right here. I don't have conditional formatting or highlighting here, but I will show some that conditionally formatted this to have some highlighting here. The winner was Anne Marie with 299 points. And then as a bonus, I asked if you could rank second and third place. So second place was Grace with 296 points. And then Dottie was third with 289. Yeah, so there we go. Okay, so and I can zoom in there a little bit. Okay, good. So let's jump into this and we'll take a look at the solution. So really, to kind of break this down, the first thing we need to solve for, and I should explain this in a little more detail here. Like I said before, we have 4 components here, which are the date of birth, the time of birth, the weight, and the length. And the person is going to get 50 points for each category. And depending on how far off they are from the actuals, there'll be a deduction of those 50 points. And so that's explained in the rules. And I also have a little table over here that shows that. So for the date of birth, if they're off by a day, they're going to -2. Or if they're off by 2 days, they'll multiply that -4. And that's how that works. And then if they get an exact match, they get 100 points for the category. So that's the rules there. That's what we have to solve for using formulas. So let's first look at the first solution here. And just check the stream. We're all good there. Okay. Let's check, or I'm going to go into this. So the date of birth is the first component. Okay, so for the date of birth, and I've just hidden all the other columns, so we're really just focused on the date of birth. That's what I've done here. And for the date of birth, of course, we're first going to find the variance. So that's very easy to do, the variance in number of days. In this case here, it's just simple subtraction. So in this cell here, I'm just subtracting. Let me make this a little bigger for you. There we go. You can see that a little better. I'm just subtracting the date of birth that was guessed by, in this case, Daisy, minus the actual day. So very simple calculation here. When you subtract dates in Excel, that's going to give you the number of days. So you add or subtract dates, that's going to give you days, essentially. So dates are really a number in Excel that's stored as a number, the number of days that have elapsed since January 1st, 1900. That's how the calendar system works in Excel. And then it's just formatted as a day. So that's how that works there. And that'll give us the variance, the number of days variance. So the next tricky part with this is, and I think this was tricky for some at least, was to then get the absolute variance. And for that, we can use the absolute function. So in this cell here, I have the absolute function. I'm going to delete this and I'll just go ahead and retype it. So ABS is the absolute function, and absolute is going to return the number, the positive number. So whether we have a negative or a positive number, absolute is going to return the positive version of that number, right? So we're kind of going back to math class here, or maybe, yeah, math class. I don't know what math class absolutes in. Is it algebra or trig? I don't know, but what it's taught it. So anyways, we're going to use the absolute function. ABS is the absolute function, and it has one argument for the number. So we just want to specify the number there and close the parentheses and hit enter, and that's going to return the positive version of that number. So that's what we have here. And then what we're going to do is calculate the deduction. So the deduction is just the absolute variance multiplied by the deduction for this column. For the date of birth column, that deduction is 2 points for each day. So we have a -2 there. You could make this a +2 and then subtract instead of add. I just made this negatives to kind of make it look like a deduction, but either way is good. And from there, we're going to then take the starting number of points, which is 50. And I'll explain this if statement in just a second, but essentially we have 50 points for the column. And then here we're just going to add the deduction to 50 points to get the total number of points for the column. So that's how that one works. And this formula is split out into multiple helper columns. I should have explained that at the beginning, but it's split out into multiple helper columns here. Of course, we can combine this all into one formula, which we'll see, and it's in the solution page here. But I wanted to break it out into multiple columns to make it easier to explain and also understand. So now let's go back to column K. Here we have this if function. So I want to explain how this works. And we'll go ahead and just retype it here. So I'm going to delete that one. We'll say equals if, and we'll tab into if. So the first argument for if is the logical test. So here in this case, like I said before, if there's an exact match, meaning the person guesses the exact day, in this case, the exact day that the baby's born on, then they get 100 points. So for this, for our logical test, we're just going to say if the date of birth that they guessed is equal to the actual date of birth here, and I'm going to hit F4 on the keyboard to make that an absolute reference, because as we copy this down, we don't want that reference to change. If those two are equal, then what happens? They get 100 points. And we have that 100 points stored in a cell over here, cell P7. So I'll select that. Again, I'm going to hit F4 on the keyboard to make that an absolute reference. The dollar signs means it won't change as we copy the formula down. If not, they get 50 points. So if it's not an exact match, they get 50 points. Again, F4 to make that an absolute reference. And here we'll close the parentheses. So in our if statement here, we just have this logical test. If those two are equal, then we're going to return 100 or the value of cell P7. If not, we'll return the value of cell P6. Hit enter. And in this case, it's 50 because it's not an exact match. You can see Dottie down here guessed it exactly. So she's going to get 100 points in that case for the exact match. So that's how that works. That's how really the basics of the formula works. And this formula, the structure of this and the technique really works for all of the categories. Now, there's a little bit of difference because we have different data types here, and I'm going to talk about that. But really kind of the setup work here with getting the absolute variance, doing the deduction from the starting number of points, and also determining if it's an exact match or not, that's all the same throughout all the columns. So if you kind of understand that logic, you can apply it to the other columns, which will also save you time in solving this problem. Yeah, okay. Let me just double check everything. Okay, hopefully we're good on our stream here. Looks like something might have froze. No, okay. Good. Okay. Okay, so let's go over to the time solution. So now for the next column, again, we just solved for the date, and next we have the time. So the time of the birth, This one is a little bit more challenging. I saw quite a few different ways to solve this, or quite a few different techniques that people use to solve this. So essentially with time of birth, in this case here, for the rules, we said that we would round down to the nearest hour before calculating the variance. That was part of the rules, just to make it a little bit easier. So in this case here, in the example video, I said, this actual time of birth is 1930. This is a 24-hour clock or military time. So actual was 1930. And then the time that was guessed was 3:13. So we'd round both these down, this one to 19, this one to 3. You'd get a variance of 16 hours. That's what we're looking for. So the first thing we need to do is some rounding. We need to round down this time to the nearest hour, and same with this time here before doing the variance. There's quite a few different ways to do that. You could use the round down function, or another common one I saw, I initially used just round down. You can also use ceiling, or floor, I should say. But another one that I saw frequently was the hour function. I thought this was a great, very easy way to do rounding on the time. So essentially the hour function is just going to return the hour number of a time. That's all it is. So it's just serial, it accepts a serial number as an argument, which again is just a timestamp, or it could be a date and time, and it's just going to return the hour of that value. So that's what it does there. So in this case, it returns 3 because this is 3:13. It's just going to round down to 3, 11, and so on. You can see all of those in this column. And then so the variance, again, is simple subtraction now. It's just taking the number, the hour for the actual, which I just put up here, minus the value in the column here to get us that variance in the number of hours. And then again, we'll use the absolute function to find the absolute variance there, so we can multiply it by the deduction. In this case, the deduction is 1 point for every hour. And so that'll give us the total deduction here. And again, we're using the same if function for the starting points, either 50 or 100, and take the variance from that. Yeah. And I should have mentioned too that if there is a 100-point exact match, that the variance will be 0, or I'm sorry, the deduction will be 0. So it'll be just 100 minus 0. I didn't mention that, but that's how this still works in this case with kind of that logic there. Yeah. Okay, cool. So type in the chat if you're still with me. If you have any questions during this at all, feel free to type in the chat as well. And let us know if you have any questions or anything like that. Yeah, on any of these. And like I said, I will also go into some alternate solutions as well. So if you solved the problem, and this wasn't the way you did it, I will explain some alternate solutions too. This just is kind of the most common, I would say, probably the easiest, and also using the functions that are available for all versions of Excel. So some people use some of the new functions, some of the dynamic arrays, a let and lambda and things like that. Even some new text functions like text before. Those aren't available on all versions of Excel. So I will mention some of those, but we'll kind of go with the formulas that are available on all versions of Excel. Okay. Thank you, Tammy and Sarah. Here, ready? Okay, awesome. Yeah, I'm monitoring the chat too. So again, feel free if you have any questions there to let me know in the chat. Okay, so let's go over to the weight solution. And again, this is, let me zoom in so we can see it a little better. Same logic here throughout, but we need to find the difference in weights. And again, the goal here was the rule was to round down. So we want to round down, in this case, 10 pounds, 2 ounces. We're just going to round down to 10 pounds. So rounding down to the nearest pound to make it easier, and then calculate the variance from there. So in this case, there's quite a few ways to get the pounds, the rounded down pounds, if that makes sense. The rounded down pounds. Yeah, there's there's quite a few ways to do that. Essentially, we want to extract the number before the letter LBS here, the phrase LBS for pounds. We want to extract that number. We could use a formula for this, and I'll show that technique. I noticed some people use text to columns. You could do that. So I saw someone in the chat just say, has anyone submitted a solution using Power Query? Yes, a few people have. And that's another way to do the split here as well. Of course, there's a lot more to this with Power Query, and I'll explain that too. I'll jump into that. I'll try and get through the basic explanation here and then jump into that and show that one as well. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. Oh, and Jay made a great point. If using the hour function, be sure to format as general or number. If format as time, it doesn't work. Yeah. It'll still work. It'll just look weird. The formatting won't change the value per se, but it will it'll just look like a time instead of a date. I'm sorry, instead of a number here. So if it's formatted as a time, it's just going to look weird, and it's going to show 12 a.m. and that doesn't make any sense. So yeah, and technically, yeah, like the rest of the calculations based on that still work, but Jay's absolutely right that now it looks weird. So yeah, this hour is going to return a number. I should have said that, or an integer value. So it's going to return a number. So we want to format that as either general, or you could format that as a number to see that number for the hour function. So yeah, just jumping back there to the previous one. Thanks, Jay, for pointing that out. Appreciate that. Okay, so sorry to get off track. Well, let's go back to the weight. So to do this extraction, again, we want to return the first number here from pounds. For this, I used the left function. There's, again, a lot of different ways to do this, but I'll just work through, I'll delete the formula and work through it. So the first thing we want to do is really return, with the left function, we're going to return the left number of characters from this text here. So if we, for example, if we just specified 1 here for the number of characters in left and close the parentheses, that's going to return a 9. But when we get down here to 10 pounds, I'll just copy this formula down here. It's only going to return a 1. So in this case here, we need the left 2 characters. So we need some logic in there to say we want the left number of characters before LBS, that phrase LBS. So in order to do that, we can use the search function, either search or find. They both work the same. Find is just case sensitive, search is not. So we want to, the text we want to find is going to be the LBS, the phrase LBS, or you can just put LB, and if there's a case where you have some are singular LB and some are plural LBS, just put the first 2 letters there. Within the text, we'll reference cell D6 again, and then we'll close the parentheses on search. So that's going to search and find the starting character of where LB starts. So that's going to actually return a 3 in this case. I'm sorry, in this case, it's going to return a 2 because it's the second character. And that'll give us 9L, which we don't want. So on search, we're going to just subtract 1 from the end of it. So that's the formula there. That'll give us 9. Let's copy this back down, and then that'll be 10 there. So that's a very common way to split text with search and left. Another way to do, and I have a video in the description that goes to that in more detail. So I won't spend a ton of time on it there, but there is a video in the description on how to split text and different ways to do it. A newer way to do this, an easier way, if you're on, well, I think you still have to be on the beta version of Excel, but in the near future, for anyone on Microsoft 365, you can use the new text before function, which is awesome. So we kind of do that all with one function now, and I have a video on this in the description below as well. But we just say the text, we reference the text. The delimiter is, again, going to be LB, close the parentheses. That's all we need for this. It's going to return the text before LB. That's essentially what this function does, and it'll give us the same result. We don't need to account for how many characters it happens. If we paste that down to where there's 2 characters, text before still just works for us. So much easier function for text splitting. There we go. I've been using text before and text after a lot, even today in preparation of this video. By the way, one thing I forgot to mention at the beginning where I used that was in this file here. And again, this file you can download in the description. There'll be a link in the description where you can download this file. On this submissions list page here, what I've done is I've taken all of the uploads that everyone did and put them in this Excel table so you can download the files and check them out. Because like I said, there was over 100 of them. and I can't share all of them today. I'll highlight a few. And if I don't highlight yours, first of all, I apologize. And second of all, if I go through some of the ones and I don't mention yours and you're like, I have a super cool solution, I might have just missed it and I apologize. Let us know in the comments on the live stream, and we can go in here and I'll open it up and check it out. Because basically it's just everyone's first name. I removed all the sensitive information. It's just everyone's first name, a link to the upload file that you submitted or people submitted, and then the description here. So you'll be able to read through these, kind of see ones that might interest you, and then open the file. So that gives everyone the file and access to different files, because these are all great learning resources, and it's all for you. It's all for the community. So I wanted to make sure you had access to all these, and so that's all there on this submissions list. And there's over 100 of them here, so a ton of things to learn, but a lot of similarities, which is what we're talking about here. So yeah, okay, let me see. I think there's a few comments. Cool. Yeah, Sherry Ann said she's learning in quarantine, but great. Yeah, I'm happy to hear you're spending some time learning. That's awesome. Good. Okay. Yeah, Mo, in terms of books to learn Excel step by step, gosh, there are so many, and most of them are like this thick, like the Excel Bible, the old Excel for Dummies by John Walkenbach. Those are all great for learning Excel kind of step by step, but they're just so enormous. I'm actually going to write a book someday. It won't be as enormous, and it won't be everything step by step. But there's definitely different books on different topics as well. We have a resources page at Excel. I think it's excelcampus.com/resources that lists a few books. You can check out there as well. Yeah. And if you like online training, we also have our Elevate Excel training program, which covers learning Excel step by step. It's in a video format instead of book format. We have challenges and quizzes and stuff like that too as well. Okay, let's get back to it. So we did our date, time, and weight. The last one is the length. And this one is probably the easiest of all of them, because essentially we just need to, again, calculate the variance and between the actual and guessed amount and do rounding. So again, rounding before the variance is calculated. And here I just use the round down function. So this is another really good one to know for any data analyst. Round down is a great function because it's just going to do exactly what it says, which is round down. So it takes the number. Let's go ahead and rewrite it. Equals round. And of course, there's round, round down, round up. We're going to use round down. And we're going to take the number, which in this case is the length, and then the number of digits. For this, we're going to put 0, because essentially we don't want to round to any decimal places. If we did want to round to the nearest tenths, we'd do 1. Nearest hundredths or 2 decimal places, we would put a 2 here. If we wanted to round the other way to the nearest tens or hundreds or thousands, then you'd use a negative number. So -1 would be tens, -2 would be hundreds, and so on. But here we just want a 0. We want the round down to the nearest whole number. So that's round down. And as you can see, it's just rounding down to the nearest, or there's nearest whole number, no decimals there. So that's what this does here. We then calculate the variance between these two. This already is a whole number, so we don't need to round it, but you could round it. Probably best to I probably should have done that, had rounding here too, or put it down here, because the actual number might, the actual number might not be a whole number. So I should have done that. So there's a mistake. And my model, there we go. So we'd want to change on the variance here, we'd want to change this to this, and then copy this down. Yeah, we don't really need the decimals there, but we can have them, and that's good to go. Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Double Excel. Oh, Nick, thanks, Nick. Nick said use the integer function instead of round down 0. Totally could do that. So that's a great point. So we'll just put that right here at round. So Nick said using the integer function, which is another possibility, it rounds down the number to the nearest integer. So, and the thing with this function is you don't need the extra argument. So you do that, and that's going to round down to the nearest integer as well. Yeah, totally could use that one too. So that's a cool, I mean, that's the thing with Excel. There's so many ways to solve these problems. So if you have additional suggestions, put those in the comments as well. Don't be afraid to, put stuff in the comments. Again, if you would do it a different way, because there's so many ways to do this, and it's so fun to learn all those. Like, honestly, integer isn't one I would have thought of, like, because I don't use it every day. It's not one I would have thought of versus round down. And I think in terms of Nick saying thoughts on those, like, my thoughts is round down or round up would just have more flexibility. That's probably why I use it more often, right? Because we want to round to nearest tenths or hundredths or whatever. But yeah, integer works great. It's easier. So thank you. Cool. Yeah. All right. So that's the basics of calculating the length. And then the length had a deduction of 2 points. And everything else here is the same. We have the absolute variance with the ABS function, the absolute function, do the deduction, starting points with our if statement here to do the exact match, and then the total points for the time. So those are the 4 categories we had. We went through each of those separately. And so then really the next step was to determine the winner. And to do that, we just add up all the points from each column. So I've collapsed this down so we can see that, well, I have the helper columns out here with the calculation of points for each column. And then this points column is just going to sum up those points. And one other thing I should point out here is that I've kind of combined the formula here all into one formula. So when we stepped through this, we had separate helper columns for this formula. Here I've combined it into one formula. So you can see it starts with the if. It's really testing the logic of the if, saying if it's an exact match, for in this case, the date of the birth, then we're going to return 100 points. Otherwise, it's 50 plus the absolute of the variance between the actual and guess times the deduction, which is over here. And also in my formula here, I just noticed that, like, I have hard-coded values when I originally wrote this. I should probably have these as referenced over here. And I know a lot of you did a great job of that. So if the point numbers change, we don't have to go into the formulas and change those. So there's, something that could be cleaned up there and copied down. Yeah. And yes, the points are calculated before, points in length. Jay said the points in length are being calculated before round down on here. Maybe they are. Yes. Thank you. Yeah. Well, I don't think so. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm missing what you're talking about there. Or maybe it's a different tab. Yeah. Okay, cool. I'll move on. But essentially, that's how everything's just combined into one formula. So you could do that as well. But I'd say, depending on your familiarity with these functions and when you're solving this initially, it's totally fine to use additional helper columns to check your work. It's much easier to kind of step through these columns to see that if we're calculating the right thing at each step versus, stuffing everything into one long formula. And I think a lot of you did that. Initially, when I was solving it, I did kind of write the formula out pretty much like this. I think I probably did this part of the formula, which is the false for the if statement first, and then accounted for the exact match with the if statement after that to make sure the math was right on that. So yeah, so it's good to kind of, approach that in helper columns and then combine everything into one if you want to. Yeah. Okay. So, the other thing I wanted to mention was Excel tables. A lot of people used Excel tables and converted this to an Excel table, which is great. I'd recommend doing that too. If you're wondering why in this solution file, I'm not using Excel tables, the reason is that not everyone's familiar with Excel tables. So if a lot of people are downloading this file and opening it up, and they might not be familiar with Excel tables, and they go modify some of these formulas, and as they modify them, it's putting structured references or table formulas or structured references in the formula, that might cause some confusion, and they might give up or get just kind of confused with those structured references, and it wouldn't follow the training here as well. So that's why I'm not using Excel tables for this. But if you're familiar with Excel tables and all of the users of your files are familiar with Excel tables, I'd highly recommend using Excel tables for this. One benefit there is that you wouldn't have to copy the formulas down as you edit them. Like when I edited this formula here, and Jay Cook saying we might have some formulas on the time and weight sheets that are not calculating correctly, then once you modify those, you just copy this down, and the table would automatically copy the formula down. So that's a great advantage of Excel tables. And I put a link in the description to training on Excel tables as well. Another YouTube video on Excel tables. All right, so let's jump over to the rank, because one thing was to determine, on the winner here, I should also explain this formula. So essentially what we did here was we had a column for the winner. So who is the winner based on the maximum number of points. So I use the max function here. And again, a lot of different ways to solve this one, but I use the max function to just find the maximum number of points in the column. And so max is just going to, you feed it numbers or a range of numbers, it's going to return the maximum value, which is 299, which we have here. And then here in this column, I just have a simple if function that says if the points for this person is equal to the cell G4, we're going to return the word winner. Otherwise, we're going to return a blank. So 2 quotation marks there is a blank. So that formula is in every cell here, just all the other cells return a blank because the if statement is false. This one is true, so that returns the word winner. Again, a lot of different ways to do that. I saw a lot of different techniques for determining the winner here. Yeah, cool. All right. Thanks, Hammer. And yes, and Cherian said she used the in function to explain logic. Yeah, I think I'm going to be showing your solution, Cherian, with that in function. I thought that was very interesting. So I'll highlight that as well. Yeah, that was interesting. Okay, and then for the rank, the next one is the rank. So I said as a bonus, let's figure out who's second and third place. Maybe we have additional prizes for second and third place, and we want to figure that out. So again, a lot of different ways to calculate this. I saw the large function and small function being used, the rank functions, and different ways to go about this. Very kind of simple approach is to use the rank function. And if you're on Excel 2007 or older, you'll use rank. If you're on Excel 2007 and newer, which most people are now, you can use rank.eq. There's also rank.average, AVG, which is that one there. And I'm happy to explain the difference between those. But essentially, rank.eq is going to just give us the same number if there's a tie. So in this case here, we have 13 multiple times. That a lot of people had 175 points and tied for 13th place, and that's what rank EQ does. But the rank function, whether it's rank average or rank EQ, let's just type this one out. So we'll use rank EQ, and which is equal, rank equal. The number is going to be the number of points for this person, and then for the reference, that's the total range here for all of the points. So we're going to rank 175 in this range of points here. We're going to hit F4 on the keyboard to make that an absolute reference. That's all the arguments we need. We can change the order if you want to go descending versus ascending, but we don't need to do that, and we'll just hit enter. And so when we copy that formula down, that's going to give us the rank for each person based on the number of points. So we can see Anne-Marie was first, we have Grace second, and Dottie is third. Yeah, okay, so that's rank. So that was kind of the bonus there. And then we also can just only show first, second, and third. So we don't want to show all the places, because when you have this column, it's kind of hard to find first, second, and third. Of course, you could sort this based on rank if you wanted to, and that's something you could do as well if you wanted to present it to everyone so they could see what place they came in. You could absolutely do that. Or if you want to make it look like this, there's a few ways to go about this. And I'm also going to explain the let function here. because I saw a lot of people using the let function, which I was surprised actually at how many of our submissions use the let function in different places, which is great to see. It's a relatively new function. I think it's available in Excel 2019 or later, and obviously Microsoft 365. I could be wrong on 2019, but it's a relatively new function, and it's great to see it being used. So I'll explain how it works. And I'm going to do that first by starting with the if function. So essentially, if we wanted to just show only first, second, and third place and have a blank be returned for all of the other options, we could use this formula here. And what this is saying is it's going to calculate the rank. So that's the formula we just saw. And if that's less than or equal to 3, so first, second, or third place, then we want to return the rank. And to do that, we need to calculate the rank again. So we calculate the rank again, and that would give us first, second, or third, or whatever the place is. And then if not, if the rank is not less than or equal to 3, then we would return a blank. So that's how this if statement works. And you can see the results here are correct. So why would we use let for this? And what is let? So let's take a look at let. So I'm going to delete this formula here, and we'll take a look at let. So let, as it says, and I'm sorry if this is hard for you to see, it says assigns calculation results to names. And it's useful for storing intermediate calculations and values by defining names inside a formula. So essentially, it allows us to define names or variables. You might think of this as kind of, if you're thinking about it in like more algebra sense, these are variables that you can set to store a value in and then write a calculation for those variables. So where it works well in this case is I'm going to just grab the formula here so we don't need to retype it, this rank EQ formula. I'm just going to copy that. Let me make this a little bigger. Sorry if you can't see it. And we're going to use a let function. So we'll tab into that. You can see the first argument we have here is the name. So this is the name that we're going to give to our variable. And we can have multiple variables. So we'll just call this one, we can call it RNK for rank. Essentially, we're going to assign the variable a value. And so the next argument is the value. And for the value, we can use a formula. So I'm going to paste in our formula here. So essentially what this is going to do is it's going to run our rank calculation, to return the rank, and then set that equal to this variable here for rank. And then after that, we can set another variable if we want. In this case, we don't need to. After that, we can write our calculation. And for this, our calculation will be that if formula. And the reason we're doing this is so the formula doesn't have to calculate rank twice. Because in our if statement, it had to calculate rank 2 times. It had to evaluate it with the logic. And then if that logic was true, it evaluated the formula again. So it did the work twice. Now, in this case, Excel wouldn't even blink at that in terms of performance. But if you have thousands and thousands of cells and a much more complex workbook and your calculations are slow, this could be a reason why, because essentially Excel will have to calculate twice, and at least in the cases where the formula is true. So again, we're talking about 3 here, but if that's thousands or hundreds of thousands, that can really slow Excel down. So the let function can help with performance. So let's get into the calculation. So the calculation is, again, just our if statement here. We're going to say, in this case, if rank, RNK, because that's the value returned here for the variable, if rank is less than or equal to 3, then we want to return rank. Otherwise, we're going to return blank. So you can see here before with this, for where RNK is for my rank variable or name, before we had this formula listed twice. Now we're just using the variable instead. So it calculates it, stores the variable, then we can use that and in our calculation. So close the parentheses on let. Of course, that's going to return blank there. But if we copy the formula down, we can see that we get the exact same results, just a more efficient formula. Okay, any questions on let? I'm gonna take a quick drink of water. Okay, and yeah, Mary had a good, sorry, Mary, I missed your comment earlier, consider using the evaluate formula window. Yeah, absolutely. Instead of helper columns. Totally. I think that's true. I'll mention that real quick and show it. Great suggestion. So what Mary's saying is, if instead of having all these helper columns, where we actually in the winner sheet here, we just kind of stuffed everything into one cell, the longer formula. If you come across a workbook like this and you're not sure how it calculates, one thing you can do is use the evaluate formula window, and that's on the formulas tab here. So in Excel, go to formulas tab, and then evaluate formula windows right here. Keyboard shortcut on that is Alt-T-U-F. I don't know why I remember that. I use this a lot, so I remember that one. That's kind of a mouthful there, but Alt-T-U-F will get you there as well. And this, I think this is going to be, hopefully you can see this. I'm sorry if it's hard to see the text here. It might be pretty small on your screen. You might want to go full screen for this. But essentially, the evaluate formula window will evaluate through the formula. And right now, B6 is underlined. And when you click the evaluate button here, or you click the space bar on the keyboard, that'll evaluate that. That's a date serial number there. Hit space bar again. It's evaluating this first logical statement, which is false. So then it jumps over to the false argument. It's going to evaluate 06. So I have space bar there for 50. Space bar here for the variance, the absolute variance there. Multiply that by -2. And then we get -10 plus 50 is 40. And so that's what that formula returns. So you can just step through the formula to see how it's calculating. So it's another great tool that's, it should be in every data analyst tool belt for sure. Is evaluate formula window can really help with more complex formulas. Yeah, cool. Okay, great suggestion. All right, so we did rank let. And I mentioned the submissions list. If you joined late in this file, you can download this file in the description. There's a link to download this file. On this sheet here called submissions list, it's a green tab. I've put a table with all of the submissions that everyone uploaded, so you can check those out as well. And there's a description column here in column C where everyone could explain their solution, and then a link here in column B where you can download the file. So if you see one here, description, you're looking through this and it looks like it used some cool advanced stuff or something you're not familiar with, download the file and check it out. Yeah. And we had over 100 submissions. So that's why I just put them all here, because there's no way I can go through all of these. I'm going to highlight a few. I have another workbook here. Let's see, it is submissions, where I'm going to highlight a few and kind of show some different ones. And again, if I don't, I apologize if you're on the call or you're watching the replay and I don't highlight yours. Like, if there's no other reason than I just, a few caught my eye and there was a lot of similarities between some of them. So I just picked one and kind of put it on here. But if you are on the call right now and you have something cool in yours that I don't mention, feel free to just tell us in the chat and we can open your file and check it out, if that sounds good. So Alistair, he used the hour function. Again, you could use round down here for calculating the time, or probably, I can't remember, I think I saw maybe 2 or 3 other ways to get the time, like using text functions, like left was one of them. And there's probably some other ways to do it too. Floor, isn't it, like floor.math is another function you could use for this. So a few different ways to round down time. But Alistair and quite a few others use the hour function, which is probably the easiest or the most simple one to use. So just wanted to point that out. And he also had some conditional formatting here for the winner column, which I thought was cool. So kind of gold, silver, bronze, highlighting there for those columns using conditional formatting. And of course, if you want to check that out in his file, you can go to the Home tab, conditional formatting, manage rules, and that'll be the rules there. Relatively simple rules, just cell value rules for the 3 different formats. So pretty easy stuff, but looks great. I love it. Let's see. Peter also did some cool stuff here. I liked Peter's. Peter had the filter function. Well, first of all, Peter had what I considered a massive let formula. So another thing you can use let for and let me see if I can make this bigger, is you can have let for the entire calculation here. Essentially what Peter, and I saw this quite a bit. So Peter was not alone on this, but really setting up kind of the variables at the top here for let, and then doing the different calculations. You can see here he's date diff, diff date with the, I guess he didn't use date diff, but he used diff date as the variable, but really doing all of those calculations for the point deductions in this one giant formula, let formula. And then at the very bottom, what it has here is the actual calculation is right here. So calculating, or it's right here, points date plus points time plus points weight plus points length, and to get the, or that, no, yeah, to return total points. So total points is set up as a lot of variables here, and then returning total points. So total points is this formula here, and then returning total points. So very cool. The pros and cons here obviously is that you have one giant formula, so that's great. You could potentially transfer this to other workbooks maybe, or other sheets at least, and then you have everything kind of in one place. So if you had limited columns or something like that, the tough part is going to be debugging this. So if you have an issue, of course you're not going to be able to see that individual cells, and you'd probably make use of the evaluate formula window here a lot more to debug that. Now, probably what most people did when they used the giant let was still use helper columns in other sheets or other cells to figure out all the components of the formula, then put them into a let and add them all together. So that's one option there. The other cool part about Peter's solution was he had this table over here that shows the winners and their points, and use the filter function for this. So there's a filter function here. We have training on the filter function as well, but essentially just using the filter function to sort down, or to filter based on, in this case, using the large function to determine the large is greater than or equal to the top 3 points there is how that's working with the large function. So yeah, that was great use of that to get the kind of this table here, the score table using filter, and then also adding these images of metals here, and then populating the results here. So still dynamic, just those names are pointing up to this filter table. So yeah, love that one. That was really cool. Let's see. Someone said one entry had 8 pounds of space. Did you change it to 8 pounds? Oh, this one here. Yeah, interesting. I might, maybe I did. I don't remember. No, it does have a space. Yeah, I never even caught that. Okay. Kathy's had a space. Yeah. So that might, I don't think she was a winner, but that might throw off her points. Good catch. Yeah, never caught it. Thank you, Brian. Yeah. I did see that some use the value function, which would account for that too. The text there being converted to a number. In this case, it looks like it still worked. Yeah, variance is still 2. So it's still going to return, the left is still going to return 2 characters, but the math there kind of automatically converts it to a number. So it's still right point deduction, depending on how you split that. But that space there could be hanging out in your formula as text. And depending on your formula, you might not calculate correctly. So good catch. Yeah. Not see that one. I don't think there's any others. Okay. Okay, cool. Yeah, and apologies if it is blurry. I hope it's not my connection. Could be potentially your connection, your internet connection. But yeah, my apologies if it's blurry. Just technical issues today. Yikes. Sorry, everybody. All right, so let me jump back over here to Alan's. Alan also used the large function here. Large and small has 2 L's in it, for the rank and the winner. So this is a cool formula you can check out. Again, I'm not going to spend too much time explaining all these unless you have questions on it. Feel free to put those. Also had a let function there for everything, which was, interesting to see too. Kind of maybe a little bit more simpler let function, but let there as well. So a lot of people using let. And then, yeah, he also had just if nested ifs here with large and small. Yep. Melissa used, let's see, the trunk function for the length. Yeah, so there was another one. That was the other one I was trying to think of for the length, to truncate the number to a whole number. So there's yet another way to get us rounding down to the integer with the trunc function. And then some conditional formatting here too, which was cool for first, second, and third place. Brian used sum product. So yet another way to solve this using sum product, still using helper columns over here. And then once had the points, kind of taking the total number of points, 200 minus the sum product. In this case would be the difference between the deductions. Yeah, just multiplying the deductions in terms of the variance multiplied by the deductions with sum product. So another way to do it there using sum product. So I thought that was cool too. Just a different one. Oh, Mattias had Power Query. I'll see if I can open Mattias's file. I know someone else had a question on Power Query as well. Lost my chat. There we go. Yeah. Okay. Okay. And let's see. Peter used one formula for the whole thing. One formula for the point and the winner. So if you want to check out monster, well, not, yeah, I guess this doesn't look like a monster of a formula here, but really using a lot of the new functionality in Excel. So if you're not on the latest version of Excel, you're probably not gonna be able to even look at this formula because it's using lambdas and let and by row. So you probably need to be on Microsoft 365 to look at this one. Oh, and HStack as well. Yeah, so might need to be on beta channel still with HStack. I don't think that's made it to the monthly channel yet. Yeah, but essentially, Peter has everything here spilling into one range. As you can see here, you can see the blue. You should be able to see the blue around the range there, and has everything spilling into one range. So he's using lambdas here. So to see those lambdas, you can go into formulas and then name manager, keyboard shortcut Control F3, and that will open up the name manager here. And you can see some of the lambdas here for points and rank. And then a lot of, these aren't all of Peter's. I had combined all of these into one workbook. So these are not all of Peter's named ranges. And so anyways, yeah, points and rank are the lambdas here. And then you could copy those out or use the advanced formula editor to look at these as well, which is an add-in for Excel. But the lambdas are there to help with all that. So I'm not going to go into detail on that one. That one could be a whole hour on itself, probably. But very cool way to do it, which is, again, one formula. So if you delete that formula, everything's gone. I'll hit undo to bring it back. But it's one spill range there. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Okay. Let's see. Let me check. Count if to highlight ties. Brian said, I'm not sure if I have Brian's on here. If not, we'll check it out. And then Michael said, can you look at the formula for weight in the solution tab? Yeah. Okay. Question. Let's see if we have something wrong. Anne-Marie, for formula for weight, the weight. For Anne-Marie, so no. So Michael's question is, should Anne-Marie get 100 points for weight? And it's not an exact match because the actual weight is 10 pounds too, and Anne-Marie's is 10 pounds. So she's going to get 50 points because there'll be no deduction. Yeah, sorry if I didn't explain that clearly, but there could still be a case where there's no deduction, but also not an exact match due to just the nature of rounding down. So that's what's happening there. That's why they don't get 100 for weight. Yeah, good question. Yeah, when I initially, when I was going to present this as a challenge, yeah, when I was going to present this as a challenge, I was going to present it like asking to come up with a point system, but then that would have got like, it wouldn't have been as much fun because then you'd really be thinking kind of through the point system and not as worried as much about like learning the Excel formulas and things like that. So I ended up coming up with a point system, and this is it. Like, maybe it's not perfect by any means, but I just kind of came up with a point system. It was like, okay, we can do that and kind of get by with it, and then have you solve to that, which probably helps a little bit more with kind of real world scenarios where you have to solve a problem based on some conditions. You can't always change the conditions for the problem you're solving, right? So that's how we did it. Yeah. So hopefully it makes sense too. Let's see. Caesar had a single lambda for points here called guess. He named it guess. And of course, with lambdas, you can write your own functions essentially in Excel now. We do have a training video on lambda. I don't think I put it in the link in the description, but I'll do that. I'll update the description with the link to the lambda training, or you can search it as well, Excel Campus Lambda, to find that. So another one using lambda there. And again, that will be in the formula manager. But the guess function is right here. That's in there twice. Yeah, I don't like that. Okay, so yeah, anyways, so you can see it's a big, long, essentially let sequence in there, nested lambda, just all kinds of crazy cool stuff. Caesar's doing some very advanced stuff with lambda here. And Caesar had a nice explanation of this too. So if you really want to geek out on this, dive into it using by row and some other functions here. Reduce even. So very cool. Yeah. Okay. Sherry Ann. Yeah, this is Sherry Ann's. So a few things with Sherry Ann's that I thought was cool. She also had ranking for last place. It wasn't part of the criteria, but I just thought it was, there might be like some gag gifts or something for last place for the, people that didn't do so well in the guessing, which is always kind of fun too, because it's just a guessing game. So that's cool. And then also she mentioned in the, let's see. Yeah, mentioned here. Let me make this bigger. Mentioned in the chat that she used the in function here to essentially comment her formulas. And I've seen this done before in the past. I don't typically use this technique, but I have come across files that use it. And really, this in function is going to return 0 or false. So because we have text there, so end it's going to return, true or false for the value, and this is text here, so it's going to return false or 0. So in just putting it in here, adding to the number, same over here, and therefore you don't change the output, but you can still kind of add comments to your formulas to explain what's happening. So it's an interesting technique. Like I said, I've seen it used before. And it's cool. It's different. There's pros and cons to it, obviously. Biggest one is if your boss likes it or requires it. Oops. Yeah. So that's one. But yeah. Thanks for doing that, Sherry Ann. Always cool, something new and different to learn. Okay. Let's see. Guido used the switch function. So this is another one you could use instead of a nested if. You could use switch here for the rank to determine who the winners are. And essentially with switch, we have an expression which is the rank for this specific person. So this would return the rank here. And then what switch is doing is it's saying if that value that's returned, the rank for that person is 1, then we're going to return this value here. In this case, I named it golden guess. For 2, silver guess, and for 3, bronze guess. And if none of those conditions are met, then the else statement there, the default is good sport. So you can see that's what he has there, which is cool. Another great function there to learn is switch. Very cool. Let's see. Greg. Oh, I just put this here. Greg had the point deductions up here in this row. I had them in a separate table, but just a different way to set it up. I liked this too. And quite a few people did this. So again, if I didn't show your file, but you did do this, This is just, one thing that stood out is just kind of putting it different place. Bill used an ifs function for the winner. So instead of switch or if, you could potentially use ifs here as well. And then using the large function here to determine if it's second place, a large function will essentially return if it's the place, second place in the array there. And then if those were equal, then you would return a true for that. So ifs allows you to have multiple if statements without having nested ifs. Essentially what it does with the new ifs function. I don't remember when ifs was introduced, but it's a relatively new function as well, but helps kind of with those nested if statements too. Yeah. Okay, cool. And then Graham used the choose function, which was also used in a few of those other ones. But the choose function, again, instead of switch, you could use the choose function too to, again, pass the rank through to, I'll do it up here so you can see it. Choose is going to grab the rank and pass that through to each of these values. So value 1 would be winner, value 2 would be runner-up, and value 3 would be third place. So yet another way with ifs, switch, choose. So many ways to kind of determine the winner there for just the top 3. So it's very cool to see that too. Yeah. Okay. And then also, I'm sorry you had to change your settings to 480p. I don't know. Oh, from 480p to HD. Yes. I guess I should have mentioned that. But yeah, that might be if you opened, especially if you opened that this on a smaller screen or something, you might need to change the video quality setting to HD. I should have mentioned that at the beginning. It's probably late now, but thanks, Richard. And then Michael said, thanks for the explanation. Some of the results shown had 100 points assigned. Guessing that was based off the round down number. Yes, could have been. Okay. Yeah. So like I said, if you submitted one that kind of different than what I just showed, and you think it's unique or different, feel free to type in the chat, and we can open your file if you submitted it through the form. And if you have any other questions, you can put those in the chat as well. Otherwise, we'll wrap it up here. And again, you can download this file in. You can download the file and still take the challenge if you want. I mean, now you know how to solve it, but if you want to practice writing some of these formulas and you haven't done it yet, I would say it's a great, practice, even though it's like a guessing game for a baby shower. I think a lot of these techniques are definitely still useful in real world data analysis scenarios. We looked at dates here and doing variance between dates, times, truncating or removing or splitting text here for the weight as well, length, rounding down. So we looked at a lot of different techniques there for working with different data types, as well as logical statements with the if statement, things like that, calculating the winner with the rank or large or small functions, and also the total number of points. So a lot of hopefully valuable learning for you here as well. And then it was great to see everyone's participation and all of the advanced solutions that you all came up with. I was very impressed with all the solutions, whether it was advanced or just kind of more basic techniques. Very impressed. And I want to say thank you again for participating in this. We were overwhelmed with the number of responses in a good way. I'm so happy to see so many responses. So, if you enjoyed this, let us know, reply to the email or put in the comments if you enjoyed this and want to see more of them in the future as well. If you have any questions, put them there too. Also mentioned that we also have a community forum where you can post questions. So if you have a specific Excel questions about a topic or something, we have a community forum for that. That's in our Elevate Excel training program. And you can go to excelcampus.com/elevate to learn more about that. But we have a community forum there where you can interact and post questions there as well. Cool. All right. So I'll wrap it up. Yeah. Thanks, Luis and Mike and everyone else for joining us today. I really appreciate you taking the time. Again, apologies for the technical difficulties. I'm sorry about that. First time that we've had one fail that that much on us, and I apologize. I'll try and figure out a kind of a backup plan for the future, so we don't have that happen again. But yeah, thanks again, everyone. Have a great day. I'll talk to you soon.